Never dismiss the value and the importance of a word prompted by the Holy Spirit and spoken to someone in obedience at the right time. In 1 Corinthians 14, Paul says that prophecy strengthens, encourages, and comforts people. Sometimes we think that has to look dramatic or highly spiritual or on some big platform, but often it's simpler than that. Sometimes it's just noticing the person God noticed, seeing them and speaking the word that God gives us. When I was 11, my life was pretty difficult. I was recovering from major foot surgery. Things at home were less than ideal, and I was severely bullied at school. At the time, I honestly thought this was normal, even though deep inside I knew something wasn't quite right. One day I left my classroom to use the washroom, and on my way back, the school counselor was in the same hallway, walking in the opposite direction. She seemed to hesitate, as if making an internal decision, and then she stopped. She was very careful not to startle me, but asked matter-of-factly, "Hey, is there anything unusual going on at home?" I answered quite honestly, "Nope." And I was telling the truth as I understood it, because what I was living in was quite normal for me. She paused for a moment and then smiled and said, as if she were changing the subject, "Hey, would you happen to know why your little sibling is twisting and pulling out their hair at school? You got any ideas?" And I remember looking at her and saying very matter-of-factly, "I don't know why they would do that. Maybe because they're really smart and they're really bored and they got nothing else to do." I beamed at the counselor because even back then, I liked to be helpful and it made sense to me. The counselor paused and simply nodded. She took me at my word, and then she told me that I was a really good big sister, and that if anything ever bothered me, I could come and talk to her, or I could talk to God. And that was the end of the conversation. Back in those days, people did recognize that behaviors like compulsive hair pulling by a child could point to anxiety or stress, but unless there was visible proof of abuse, there was often little that schools or counselors could formally do. So outwardly, she had to let it go. But I know she was praying for me. I know this for a fact. I know she was obeying the prompting of God that day. A couple of years later, there was a serious escalation in the bullying I was experiencing at school. And that same woman of God went to bat for me. She spoke truth into my life as well, telling me that God saw me, and so did she, and that she would do everything in her power to make sure I was safe at school. I'll never forget that. Looking back now as an adult, I realized something I didn't realize then. That counselor stepped in the hallway long enough to she engaged with me. She spoke truth to me. She encouraged, strengthened, and comforted me, and in ways I did not understand back then. Those words held my head above the waters that were trying to drown me. I've had other moments like that in my life where somebody stepped in under the promptings of the Holy Spirit with the right word at exactly the right moment. So I want to challenge you today as a Christ follower. Ask the Lord to give you a word of strengthening, encouragement, or comfort to somebody. He'll highlight them to you. Then share it simply, casually, without making a big spectacle of it. Just let people know they're seen by a God who wants them to know that they are loved, not just by you, but by God. You may never know the impact your words have on somebody's life, but God knows, and that person will always remember.